Hallihallo und willkommen zu dir, Esther. Das ist dieses Mal ausnahmsweise ausdrücklich kein Let's Play, sondern einfach nur dir, Esther. Warum man von dir, Esther, kein Let's Play machen kann, warum es eigentlich gar kein Spiel ist, dazu müsstet ihr euch die Serie natürlich anschauen. Vorausschickend, ich habe das Ganze mit einem Controller gespielt, den ich einfach auf Maus und Tastatur umgestellt habe. Das ist relativ kompliziert, wenn ihr das Spiel auch gekauft habt und auch mit dem Controller spielen wollt, weil es dadurch etwas besser aussieht durch die langsamen Kamerabewegungen. Und ihr bringt es nicht fertig, dass ihr das einstellt, dann könnt ihr euch bei mir melden. Ansonsten, das Spiel, es ist eigentlich kein Spiel und man spielt es eigentlich auch nicht. Das sollte ich eigentlich aus meinem Wortschatz streichen. Ich werde auch nichts kommentieren hier jetzt in den 4 Folgen, nur kurz am Anfang jetzt hier und später dann. Und vor allem auch deswegen, weil es in dir erst darum geht, die Umgebung genauer anzuschauen, genauer hinzuhören und vor allem den gesprochenen Text zuzuhören. Es geht nämlich hier um ziemlich schlimme Sachen. Wir werden gleich mal starten, und zwar gibt es in dir erst 4 Kapitel, die ich jeweils in 4 einzelne Videos packen werde. Und wir fangen gleich mal mit dem ersten an, und zwar ist das der Leuchtturm. Und wir lernen dann auch, den Hauptprotagonisten lernen wir noch nur passiv kennen, aber wir erfahren schon mal einiges über Esther selbst. Und schauen wir mal.
Dear Esther, I've lost track of how long I've been here and how many visits I have made overall. Certainly the landmarks are now so familiar to me that I have to remind myself to actually see the forms and shapes in front of me. I could stumble blind across these rocks, the edges of these precipices, without fear of missing my step and plummeting down to sea. Besides, I have always considered that if one is to fall, it is critical to keep one's eyes firmly open. Donnelly reported the legend of the hermit, a holy man who sought solitude in its most pure form. Allegedly, he rode here from the mainland in a boat without a bottom, so all the creatures of the sea could rise at night to converse with him. How disappointed he must have been with their chatter. Perhaps now, when all that haunts the ocean is the rubbish dumped from the tankers, he'd find more peace. They say he threw his arms wide in a valley on the south side, and the cliff opened up to provide him shelter. They say he died of fever 116 years later. The shepherds left gifts for him at the mouth of the cave, but Donnelly records they never claimed to have seen him. I have visited the cave and I have left my gifts, but like them, I appear to be an unworthy subject of his solitude. When you were born, your mother told me, a hush fell over the delivery room. A great red birthmark covered the left side of your face. No one knew what to say, so you cried to fill the vacuum. I always admired you for that you cried to fill whatever vacuum you found. I began to manufacture vacuums just to enable you to deploy your talent. The birthmark faded by the time you were 6 and had gone completely by the time we met, but your fascination with the empty and its cure remained. Dear Esther, I found myself to be as featureless as this ocean, as shallow and unoccupied as this bay, a listless wreck without identification. My rocks are these bones, and a careful fence to keep the precipice at bay. Shot through me caves, my forehead a mount. This aerial will transmit into me so. All over exposed, the nervous system, where Donnelly's boots and yours and mine still travel. I will carry a torch for you. I will leave it at the foot of my headstone. You will need it for the tunnels that carry me under. The mount is clearly the focal point of this landscape. It almost appears so well placed as to be artificial. I find myself easily slipping into the delusional state of ascribing purpose, deliberate motive to everything here. Was this island formed during the moment of impact? When we were torn loose from our moorings and the seatbelts cut motorway lanes into our chests and shoulders, did it first break surface then? When someone had died or was dying, or was so ill they gave up what little hope they could sacrifice, they cut parallel lines into the cliff, exposing the white chalk beneath. You could see them from the mainland or the fishing boat, and know to send aid or impose a cordon of protection, and wait a generation until whatever pestilence stalked the cliff paths died along with its hosts. My lines are just for this. Keep any would-be rescuers at bay. The infection is not simply of the flesh. They were God-fearing people, those shepherds. There was no love in the relationship. Donnelly tells me that they had one Bible that was passed around in strict rotation. It was stolen by a visiting monk in 1776, 2 years before the island was abandoned altogether. In the interim, I wonder, did they assign chapter and verse to the stones and grasses, marking the geography with a superimposed significance that they could actually walk the Bible and inhabit its contradiction? Dear Esther, I met Paul. I made my own little pilgrimage. My Damascus, a small semi-detached on the outskirts of Wolverhampton. We drank coffee in his kitchen and tried to connect to one another. Although he knew I hadn't come in search of an apology, reason or retribution, he still spiraled in panic, thrown high and lucid by his own dented bonnet. Responsibility had made him old. Like us, he'd already passed beyond any conceivable boundary of life. I would leave you presents outside your retreat in this interim space between cliff and beach. I would leave you loaves and fishes, but the fish stocks have been depleted and I've run out of bread. I would row you back to your homeland in a bottomless boat, but I fear we would both be driven mad by the chatter of the sea creatures. The vegetation here has fossilized from the roots up. To think they once grazed animals here, the remnants of occupation being evidence to that. It is all sick to death. The water is too polluted for the fish, the sky is too thin for the birds, and the soil is cut with the bones of hermits and shepherds. I've heard it said that human ashes make great fertilizer, that we could sow a forest from all that is left of your hips and ribcage, with enough left over to thicken the air and repopulate the bay.